Hey there, I'm Rachel, and let me tell you, the family I thought I knew betrayed me in ways I couldn't have imagined. My sister manipulated our grandmother's will, but the truth? That's what changed everything. Imagine finding out the people you trusted the most were the ones who left you with nothing but lies. Why would a family do that? Have you ever been betrayed by someone you loved? How far would you go to protect your family's legacy? Drop a comment below. I really want to know where you're listening from and how you've handled something similar. Let's talk. I hadn't been home for more than an hour when it hit me like a freight train. My phone buzzed incessantly as I walked through the door of my childhood home. I had no idea that a simple visit would spiral into something that would change everything. The message from my lawyer's office stared back at me, its words echoing in my head. "Rachel, please call us as soon as possible. It's about the will." My grandmother's will. The chill that ran through my spine was instant. I never expected something so simple as a visit to spark a confrontation that would unravel the fabric of my entire family. But then I should have known better. Alyssa, my sister, my blood, had always been the manipulator, the one who smiled while twisting the knife behind your back. I had learned to avoid her games, but now there was no escaping it. I called the lawyer's office immediately, my hands trembling as the phone rang. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. "Hello, Rachel. It's Linda from the office," the voice on the other end said, her tone serious. "I'm afraid there's been a discrepancy with your grandmother's will. We need you to come in and look at something." Discrepancy? My grandmother was a proud woman. She never wavered, not even when it came to her inheritance. But now, this? My stomach churned as the panic slowly began to settle in. I didn't know it yet, but my world was about to be turned upside down. The confrontation with Alyssa didn't take long. I had come back from the lawyer's office, numb, barely able to process what I'd seen. The will had been altered drastically. The signed document that I had believed was secure was gone, replaced by a version where Alyssa had positioned herself to inherit everything. Everything. I called her. I didn't even wait for her to come to me. I dialed her number with a shaky hand, my mind racing. She answered after the second ring, her voice as calm as ever. "Rachel, what's going on?" "Don't play dumb, Alyssa. I know what you did. I know you manipulated Grandma's will. How could you?" I didn't even try to hide the venom in my voice. For a moment there was silence, then that familiar mocking laugh I had grown to dread. "Rachel, sweetie, calm down. It's not what you think." "Not what I think? You forged her will. You're trying to take everything she worked for." My voice was rising now, the anger threatening to overtake me. How could she do this? How could she betray our grandmother like this? Alyssa sighed, almost like she was bored. "Oh, please, don't act like you're some saint. Grandma's dead, and you're still pretending you care about her. About the will. You should have known this was coming." I didn't know how to respond to that. I wanted to scream at her, to throw something. But instead, I hung up. My body was shaking with frustration and fear. She had crossed a line and she knew it. Now the question was, how far was I willing to go to stop her? Later that night, I decided I needed more proof. I couldn't confront her without something solid. Something that would expose her for the deceitful, manipulative person she was. I spent hours going through old family documents in the attic. Then, buried beneath piles of dust, I found it. A hidden video camera, one my grandmother had kept for protection. The footage was clear. Alyssa, sitting across from Grandma in her favorite armchair, whispering sweet words while she signed the new will. She had manipulated her, just like I feared. The video showed Alyssa subtly guiding Grandma's hand, coaxing her into making decisions that weren't her own. Tears welled up in my eyes as I watched. How had I not seen this coming? My own flesh and blood had taken advantage of a woman who loved us unconditionally. My grandmother had been vulnerable, and Alyssa knew exactly how to exploit that. I clenched my fists as a wave of betrayal crashed over me. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about my family, my trust. She had shattered it. I didn't know what to do next. I couldn't just confront her blindly. I needed to be strategic. Alyssa was always 10 steps ahead, and I couldn't let her control the situation any longer. I spent the next few days organizing my thoughts, trying to plan how to approach this without burning all my bridges. But with every passing hour, the pressure mounted. The guilt of having to betray my own sister was unbearable, yet the need for justice was too strong. I couldn't sit back and let her win, but I wasn't prepared for what came next. Just when I thought I had everything under control, I found something even more disturbing. Another document, hidden deeper in the same file, an unsigned will, but one that had the potential to turn everything around. This wasn't just about Grandma's will anymore. This was bigger. I stood frozen in front of the desk, the weight of the discovery sinking in. My heart raced, and a cold sweat trickled down my spine. What had Alyssa gotten herself into? And how was I supposed to stop this? The quiet hum of the house felt suffocating. I stood at the foot of the stairs, my heart racing, as I tried to steady my breathing. It was too quiet, unnaturally so. I had just walked into the kitchen when I heard the voices. Alyssa's low, almost inaudible murmur mingled with the stern voice of someone I recognized all too well, the family lawyer, Mr. Sanders. "I'm telling you, we have to stick to the story. If Rachel finds out, she'll make a mess of things." Alyssa's voice was barely a whisper, but the words hit me like a ton of bricks. The thought of them conspiring together, behind closed doors, made my stomach twist. I had been so sure I was the only one in the dark, but now everything felt different. My suspicions had been right, and now I had to confront the reality of it. I froze, my hand still on the doorframe as I listened intently. "We'll need to make sure the paperwork is flawless, no mistakes. And you'll have to keep Rachel away for as long as possible. She's getting too close to the truth. If she finds out about the discrepancies." Mr. Sanders trailed off, but the implication was clear. Alyssa's response was cold and calculating. "I know what to do. Rachel won't suspect a thing. I've got this under control." Every word she spoke was like a dagger to my heart. Betrayal seeped through my veins, and I had to grip the doorframe to keep from collapsing. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about everything. My family, my trust in them, all of it was now tainted. I had to know more. I retreated quietly, my mind working overtime. What had they been discussing? What more was Alyssa planning? Later that evening, I went back to my grandmother's study. The walls seemed to close in as I searched through her personal documents. The pile of paperwork before me seemed endless, but one piece stood out: a recorded call. A small audio file tucked into an old envelope. I hesitated, my fingers brushing the surface. Could this be what I had been waiting for? I hit play, my hands trembling. The voice of Mr. Sanders crackled through the speaker, and Alyssa's unmistakable tone followed. "We just need to overlook the signs of fraud. The legal loopholes will be enough to cover us. Don't worry, we'll make it look completely legitimate," Alyssa said. I nearly dropped my phone. My throat tightened as I tried to process what I was hearing. They had planned this. This wasn't just a mistake or a misunderstanding. Alyssa had manipulated every single detail, from the documents to the people who should have protected our family. A new wave of fury washed over me. How could she do this to us? To me? To Grandma? I felt sick. My hands were shaking uncontrollably. This was the evidence I had been looking for, the proof that Alyssa wasn't just a sister I didn't trust, she was a criminal. But now, the real question was, what was I going to do with this? If I exposed her, everything would fall apart. The family would turn on me, and I'd lose everything I had left. But if I didn't act, Alyssa would get away with it. My grandmother's legacy, our family's history, would be reduced to nothing. I spent the next few days gathering more evidence, trying to make sense of the tangled mess Alyssa had woven. But each new discovery only seemed to push me deeper into a pit of uncertainty. I wasn't sure who to trust anymore. I thought I had control over the situation, but now I was questioning everything. Just as I was about to put everything together, something happened that I hadn't expected. A face from my past appeared, someone I hadn't seen in years. My old childhood friend Mia walked into the living room, her face full of concern. I hadn't heard from her since high school, and the shock of seeing her now was almost too much. "Rachel, you've been keeping something from me," Mia said, her voice low. "I know what's going on with Alyssa." I was frozen. My mind raced. How did she know? Was she involved in this somehow? The questions flooded in, But one thing was clear. This was not a coincidence. Mia's eyes darted to the papers scattered on the table. Rachel, you need to be careful. There's more to this than you think. I couldn't breathe. The walls seemed to close in on me as I struggled to understand what was happening. Why was Mia here? And what did she know? The moment I walked into the living room, I knew something was off. The air felt thick, heavy with unspoken words. Alyssa was sitting at the head of the table, her usual confident smile stretched across her face like a mask. She looked different. Her demeanor had shifted. It wasn't the smug, scheming look I'd grown used to. No, this was something else. Something colder, calculated. Rachel, I'm glad you could join us, Alyssa said, her voice sweet, but there was a sharp edge beneath it. Tonight's a new beginning for all of us. I couldn't hide the disbelief on my face. A new beginning? After everything she'd done? I had spent the last few days drowning in evidence of her manipulation, her lies. And now, she was trying to play the role of the prodigal daughter, the one trying to restore our family's legacy. It was infuriating. As I took my seat, I couldn't help but notice the presence of someone new at the table. Uncle Peter, my godfather, the man I had trusted like a second father. His broad shoulders and comforting presence had always made me feel safe as a child. But now, seeing him beside Alyssa, I felt a sharp pang in my chest. What was he doing here? Why was he standing with her? We've been discussing the future, Alyssa continued, her eyes never leaving mine. The past can't be undone, but we can rebuild. Together, as a family. The words felt hollow, almost rehearsed. Her charm was suffocating. The ease with which she manipulated the room, with Uncle Peter nodding along, made my stomach churn. Uncle Peter, I said, my voice tight. What's going on? You're siding with her? His eyes softened, but there was a flicker of something I didn't recognize. Rachel, your sister. She's right. We need to think about what's best for everyone. The family has been divided for too long. The betrayal hit me like a punch to the gut. Uncle Peter, the one person I thought I could rely on, had become another pawn in Alyssa's game. My heart sank as I looked at him, searching for any trace of the man who had once told me everything would be okay. I'm sorry, Rachel, Uncle Peter said, avoiding my gaze. I'm just trying to help. Help? My mind raced and my thoughts collided in a chaotic mess. How could he? How could he just turn his back on me like this? On everything we had fought for as a family? The ground beneath me seemed to shift, leaving me feeling unmoored, alone. I turned to Alyssa, my words barely controlled. You've already taken everything else. Now you're trying to take the last piece of me, aren't you? Her smile never faltered, but her eyes, cold and calculating, narrowed. I'm not taking anything from you, Rachel. I'm giving you a chance to be part of something bigger, something more important than just petty arguments. I couldn't listen to her anymore. I needed space. I needed to think, but the walls of the house seemed to close in on me. As I excused myself and walked away from the table, I felt their eyes on my back, heavy with judgment. Every step I took felt like a betrayal to my past, to the people I thought I knew. I retreated to my childhood bedroom, hoping the familiar surroundings would offer some comfort. But there was no peace here. The memories, the laughter of family dinners, the warmth of shared moments, everything felt tainted now. I pulled open the drawer where I used to hide my favorite books, and there it was, a small envelope with my grandmother's handwriting. It had been left for me weeks before her death. I hadn't thought much of it at the time, but now I felt the weight of its contents calling to me. I opened it slowly, the paper crinkling under my fingers. Inside was a voicemail, an old message from my grandmother, one I hadn't heard before. Her voice crackled through the speaker, a warning buried in her words. Rachel, my dear, someone close can't be trusted. Be careful who you trust. Things are not what they seem. I froze, the words seeping into my mind like poison. Had Alyssa been manipulating everything from the start? Was this part of her plan all along? My grandmother knew. She had known something was coming, something I hadn't been able to see. I pressed the play button again, desperate for more, for any clue that could help me understand. But it was just a warning. No answers, no names, just a cryptic plea for caution. I closed my eyes, the weight of everything pressing down on me. Alyssa's plot was more elaborate than I had ever imagined. This wasn't just about money or power. It was about control, about breaking me. But I wasn't going to let her win. Not without a fight. I had to expose her. I had to protect what was left of my family, even if it meant losing everything. The discovery of the secret bank account gave me the edge I had been searching for. Finally, something concrete, something real to hold on to in this twisted mess. The weight of the evidence in my hands felt like both a blessing and a curse. I knew the battle had just begun, but at least now I had leverage. Still, the feeling of empowerment quickly turned into anxiety. Alyssa was ruthless, and I knew she wouldn't go down without a fight. She'd been playing this game for far longer than I had realized. I couldn't let my guard down, not even for a second. I sat down in my grandmother's study, the room I had spent countless hours in growing up. The familiar smell of old books and polished wood filled my senses. But this time, it felt different. This place had always been a sanctuary, a place of safety. Now, it felt like a battlefield. I ran my fingers over the edge of the desk, feeling the grooves in the wood where my grandmother had once worked. My heart tightened as I thought about her wisdom, her kindness. She'd been the glue that held everything together. But now, she was gone, and Alyssa was trying to tear it all apart. My eyes fell on a stack of papers by the window. It was an envelope with my grandmother's handwriting. It had been there for weeks, tucked away and forgotten. My breath caught in my throat as I reached for it, knowing that this might be the answer I had been looking for. Inside the envelope was a letter, yellowed with age, but still legible. I unfolded it carefully, feeling the weight of the words as I read. My dearest Rachel, I know this may seem strange, but I must tell you something important. There are people who may not have your best interests at heart. Your sister, in particular, has her own plans. Be strong, be smart. You'll know what to do when the time comes. My heart skipped a beat. This letter? It was from my grandmother, written long before her death. She had known. She had known about Alyssa's betrayal all along. The thought of her foresight gave me a rush of emotional relief. She had been watching over me, even in her absence. I clutched the letter to my chest, tears pricking at my eyes. My grandmother had given me the strength to fight back. I wasn't alone. She had prepared me for this moment. I could hear her voice in my mind, urging me to trust my instincts. I would fight for her legacy. I would fight for what was right. But that wasn't all. There, at the bottom of the letter, was another clue. A small, handwritten note. It was the password to my grandmother's hidden bank account. I almost couldn't believe it. This was the leverage I needed, the financial power to stand up to Alyssa's manipulation. It was a game changer. I quickly made my way to the study's safe, the one my grandmother had always used. The code was etched into my memory, and within moments, I had access to the account. The amount was staggering, more than enough to turn the tide in this fight. But with the power came pressure. I knew that Alyssa wouldn't just let me take control. She would fight back harder. I needed to be careful, strategic. I couldn't afford any mistakes. I spent the rest of the evening going over my plan, weighing every move, every potential outcome. My mind raced with thoughts of how I would confront Alyssa, how I would expose her for the fraud she was. But as the hours ticked by, I could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on me. Just as I thought I was ready, my phone rang. The number was unknown, but something about it made my skin crawl. I answered without thinking. Rachel, a voice on the other end said, smooth and calculated. I know what you're up to. You're not going to win this. I froze, my heart racing. How did she know? How long had she been watching me? The cold realization hit me like a ton of bricks. Alyssa had known about my plans all along. She was always one step ahead. My pulse quickened, my hands shaking as I tried to steady myself. I couldn't back down now. This wasn't just about money or power. This was about justice. This was about protecting my family, my grandmother's legacy. I wasn't going to let Alyssa destroy it. The call ended abruptly, leaving me in the silence of my own thoughts. I felt cornered, trapped. But the fire inside me burned brighter than ever. This fight was far from over, and I was going to make sure Alyssa paid for everything she'd done. I held the forged will in my hands, feeling the weight of it like a stone sinking into the pit of my stomach. The realization that Alyssa had gone this far, had lied and manipulated, was too much to bear. She wasn't just trying to claim the inheritance. She was taking everything, but now I had proof. And that was something I wasn't going to let slip away. The discovery didn't feel like a victory. Not yet, but it was a start. My pulse raced as I walked through the house, the walls feeling suffocating. I needed space to think, to process what I had uncovered. The air seemed thick with the weight of all the lies that had been spinning around us for so long. Alyssa had crafted a false reality, and I was now holding the key to shatter it. I stepped into the study, my grandmother's old desk still standing in the corner. The familiar scent of her books lingered in the room, but now it felt wrong. Her presence was like a ghost in the corner of my mind, watching over me, urging me to fight. That's when I saw it. A letter tucked behind a stack of old papers. My grandmother's handwriting on the front addressed to me. I hesitated before opening it, my heart pounding in my chest. Could it really be from her? A letter meant for this exact moment? With trembling hands, I unfolded the paper and began to read. The words seemed to jump off the page. My dearest Rachel, I know this may seem strange, but I must tell you something important. There are people who may not have your best interests at heart. Your sister in particular has her own plans. Be strong, be smart. You'll know what to do when the time comes. Tears welled in my eyes. My grandmother had known. She had known what Alyssa was capable of, and she had prepared me for this fight. She had never left me alone. She had been there all along, guiding me, even when I didn't know it. The letter was a lifeline, a sign that I wasn't just battling for money, for power. I was fighting for something much bigger, my family's legacy, my grandmother's legacy. But there was more. Beneath the letter was another piece of paper, the password to my grandmother's hidden bank account. I felt my breath catch in my throat. This was it, the final piece of the puzzle. The financial leverage I needed to go up against Alyssa and stop her once and for all. I wasted no time. I rushed to the safe where my grandmother had kept her most important things. I entered the code, my fingers shaking. The click of the lock opening was the sound of victory. The account was mine to access. And when I saw the balance, my heart dropped. It was more than enough to turn the tide, more than enough to stand up to Alyssa and everything she had tried to do. But the weight of the situation wasn't lost on me. With this power, I now had the responsibility to act, and quickly. The longer I waited, the more Alyssa would entrench herself. I had to be smart. The night stretched on as I went over my plans, each detail carefully thought out. How would I confront Alyssa? How could I expose her without putting the rest of the family at risk? The moral dilemmas kept me awake, but I knew I couldn't back down. This was my fight now. Just as I thought I was ready to make my move, my phone rang. The number was unknown. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I had to. Rachel, a voice on the other end said, cold and confident. I know what you're up to. You can't win this. My stomach churned. It was Alyssa. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up as I gripped the phone. What do you want? I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I've already won, Rachel, Alyssa continued. The assets have been moved to an offshore account. There's no way you can get them back. A chill ran through me. My worst fear had come true. She had been one step ahead all along. I could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on me, the desperation clawing at my chest. But I wouldn't let her win. Not this time. I'm not done yet, I said, my voice low and determined. I'll fight you every step of the way. I ended the call and sat in the darkness, the gravity of the situation sinking in. Alyssa had played her hand, but I wasn't going to back down. I had the evidence, I had the resources, and I wasn't going to let her destroy everything my grandmother had worked for. The battle wasn't over, it had only just begun. The phone call from an unknown number echoed in my mind, its message ringing louder than the thoughts swirling around inside my head. Alyssa had connections, people with power, people who could make my fight even harder. The weight of the situation hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just a family dispute anymore. It was war. I sat in the dim light of my grandmother's study, the room heavy with the scent of old books and memories that felt like they were slipping away. I ran my fingers over the letter my grandmother had written me, her words like a lifeline pulling me back from the brink of despair. She had seen this coming. She had known. But that wasn't all. A soft knock on the door interrupted my thoughts. I didn't even look up when I heard the door creak open, but then a voice I hadn't heard in years cut through the tension of the room. "Rachel," said a familiar voice, "it's time to talk." My heart skipped. I looked up to see Aunt Lucy standing in the doorway. She was older now, her hair streaked with gray, but the sharpness in her eyes was unmistakable. She stepped inside, closing the door behind her with a soft click. "What are you doing here?" I asked, trying to mask the surprise in my voice. "I'm here because you need to know the truth about your sister," she replied, her voice steady but laden with a weight I couldn't place. "It's time you knew what Alyssa really is." My pulse quickened. I was already drowning in lies, secrets, and betrayals. What more could I possibly learn? Lucy pulled out a folder from her bag and slid it across the table toward me. My hands were clammy as I opened it. There, in black and white, were financial records I never expected to see. They detailed Alyssa's involvement in a massive fraud scheme years ago, using the family name to cover her tracks. She had been involved in illegal activities that put the family's reputation at risk, and no one had ever known. I could feel my face drain of color. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was something much darker. "I didn't want you to be caught up in this, Rachel," Aunt Lucy said, her voice quiet. "But Alyssa has been manipulating all of us for years. You've only scratched the surface of what she's done." I stared at the papers in disbelief, unable to tear my eyes away. My sister, the one I had always looked up to, had been hiding her true nature for so long. She wasn't just a sibling trying to take what wasn't hers. She was a criminal, a master manipulator, and now she had set her sights on destroying everything I had left. "Why didn't you tell me before?" I managed to whisper, my voice trembling. "I couldn't," Lucy said, her expression pained. "I didn't know if you'd believe me. I was waiting for the right moment, and now that moment has come." The room felt colder than ever as the reality of the situation settled in. I had thought I was fighting for my grandmother's legacy, but now I was fighting to protect our family from the very woman who had been lying to us all along. I slammed the folder shut, my frustration bubbling over. "I can't believe this. I can't believe Alyssa would go this far." "I know, but you have to stop her, Rachel," Lucy said, her eyes locking onto mine. "It's not just about money. It's about the family name. If she gets away with this, there won't be anything left to salvage." I nodded, my thoughts racing. This was more than just betrayal. It was an attack on everything I had ever known, on everything my grandmother had worked for. I knew what I had to do. I stood up, the weight of my next step settling on my shoulders. "I'm going to confront her. This ends now." But before I could turn to leave, my phone rang again, the same unknown number. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the phone. Could it be her again? Could it be someone who had been sent to threaten me? I answered the call, my heart racing. "What do you want?" I demanded, trying to sound calm. "Rachel," a voice said. This time it wasn't Alyssa. The voice was cold and unfamiliar. "You don't know what you're getting yourself into." I froze. "You think you can stop this?" the voice continued. "You think you have control. But Alyssa has powerful allies, Rachel. She's not in this alone." My heart skipped a beat. Powerful allies? Who was behind her? "Who are you?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "You'll find out soon enough. But know this. If you try to expose Alyssa, there will be consequences. You won't just be fighting your sister. You'll be fighting a network that's far bigger than you can imagine." The line went dead. I stood there, my phone still pressed to my ear, my mind racing. The walls were closing in, and the danger I'd felt before now felt all too real. It wasn't just about me and Alyssa anymore. It was a battle against something much bigger, something far more dangerous. I couldn't let fear stop me, but I knew now that I couldn't fight this alone. The next chapter in this fight was about to begin. The courtroom was a battlefield, and as I stepped inside, the tension gripped me like a vice. The air was thick. Each breath felt harder to take. I glanced at Alyssa, who sat confidently across from me, her posture perfect, her smile a dangerous mask. We were both here for the same thing, control of our family's legacy. And today, we were going to fight for it in front of everyone. I adjusted my blazer, my palms slick with sweat. The weight of the moment was unbearable. This wasn't just a fight for money or property. It was a fight for what my grandmother had spent her life building. And I would not let Alyssa destroy it without a fight. "Your Honor," Alyssa began, her voice smooth and rehearsed. "The will my sister and I are disputing was clearly written with the intention of ensuring my involvement in the family business. I am the rightful beneficiary, and it's time for the family to recognize that." Her words sent a wave of anger through me. She was lying, manipulating the system just like she always had. The stakes were high, and I couldn't afford to let her win. I stood up, my voice steady but sharp. "Your Honor, the will was altered under duress. My sister manipulated our grandmother into signing it when she was not in her right mind. This was not the true will of the family matriarch." The judge listened carefully, nodding slightly as I presented my case. I could feel Alyssa's eyes on me, cold and calculating, waiting for her chance to strike back. The next few hours were a blur of legal jargon and accusations. I felt the pressure mounting with each passing minute. Alyssa countered with her own arguments, twisting the facts to fit her narrative. She was good, too good, but I refused to back down. I couldn't let her win. Just when I thought we were at a standstill, the door opened and the courtroom went silent. A man walked in, a stranger to me, but the familiarity in his eyes made my heart race. "This is Michael Harrison," Alyssa's lawyer said, his voice booming across the room. "A key witness who will testify to the legitimacy of the will." "Michael?" My breath caught in my throat. I had no idea who he was or what he was doing here. But Alyssa's smug smile told me everything I needed to know. She had a new ally, and I had no idea how deep her web of manipulation went. The room seemed to shrink as Michael took the stand. His testimony was damning. He spoke of meetings, of conversations he'd had with our grandmother before her death, and his words painted a picture that was anything but in my favor. He spoke of the will being valid and claimed to have witnessed my grandmother's final wishes, leaving me with nothing but doubt. I clenched my fists under the table. This was the last thing I had expected. My mind was spinning. Michael was no mere bystander. He was part of Alyssa's plan. He had been planted here to ensure her victory, and I had walked right into her trap. But then, something unexpected happened. As Michael finished his testimony, the courtroom door opened again, and a woman stepped inside, someone I hadn't seen in years. It was my old friend from law school, Sarah McHale. She was a renowned legal expert, and I had no idea why she was here. But as she walked toward the stand, I felt a flicker of hope. "Your Honor, I'd like to present a new witness," Sarah said, her voice strong and clear. "I've come to testify regarding the authenticity of the documents in question." Her appearance threw a wrench into Alyssa's plans. I could see the surprise in Alyssa's eyes as Sarah began her testimony. She explained how the signatures on the will had been forged, how there were irregularities in the process that went unnoticed by those who were supposed to be overseeing it.